Today's F1 fans might be cheering for Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, or Max Verstappen. These guys make light work of driving so fast that you definitely can't try out what they do. But for those who witnessed the late 90s, Ayrton Senna was the undisputed king of the track. This Brazilian phenomenon wasn't just winning races, he was shattering records. This includes a mind-blowing 41 Grand Prix victories across his career, 5 of which were consecutive wins at the Monaco Grand Prix. He even had a legendary rivalry with teammate Alain Prost, a clash so epic it's become F1 folklore. At his death, during an accident at the San Marino Grand Prix in 1994, Senna had achieved so much that it was indisputable that he had written his name in the history books. Among his numerous records, one stands out as a near impossible feat to surpass. Let's just say, it'll leave you asking, how the hell did he achieve this? Before getting into how Senna made this awesome record, let's take a little pit stop for some backstory. It all began with the Donington circuit being chosen to host the 1993 European Grand Prix. Now, this track wasn't exactly a regular on the F1 circuit. It was more like a practice track, hosting test sessions but never an official race. Well, 1993 saw a twist worthy of a soap opera. The original race venue, which should have been Autopolis, Japan, got pulled at the last minute when its owners ran into a massive debt that made them unable to get the track ready. Hence, Donington Park got the last-minute call to replace it. Shockingly, like a fleeting shooting star that blazes across the sky and vanishes, Formula One never graced Donington Park again after that memorable race where Senna made the record. It turns out that hosting a Formula One race is a bit like inviting a rock star to your house party. Oh, expensive. Track upgrades, safety checks, the whole shebang. It all cost a fortune. Ticket sales barely covered the bill, with only 50,000 people showing up on race day. Adding to the drama of the historic event was the relentless rain on race day. For any F1 fan who followed races from that era, you would know that most drivers didn't fancy driving in the rain. Back then, they didn't have fancy tyres that could handle any weather. Nope, drivers had to switch between slicks and wet tyres depending on how hard it was coming down. And if you think that sounds hairy, consider this. Donington Park, even without rain, is a curvy nightmare with barely any room to breathe. Throw in the downpour, and it becomes a wild test of nerves for drivers when navigating its corners. Even in this modern era, only a few drivers are cut out for this kind of aquatic ballet. Like all F1 races, there's always a qualifying race before the main event to see who gets to start at the front of the pack. This race took place on the Grand Prix circuit, the longer of the two circuit layouts at Donington. Even though the track was dry and the weather was ideal that day, Senna's McLaren, powered by a Ford engine, just could not match the speed demons in the Williams-Renault FW15 CS, driven by Alain Prost and Damon Hill. The result? A somewhat disappointing 4th place for Senna. He trailed behind Michael Schumacher, Hill, and a whopping 1.6 seconds behind Prost, who snagged pole position with a blazing first lap. Based on this, you'd be crazy to put your money on Senna winning the actual race. But hey, that's why they call it racing, right? Because sometimes fate and one's skills work together to produce magic. When race day arrived, rain hammered down on Donington, transforming the track into a soaking wet battlefield. The drivers lined up in their qualifying positions, with Senna stuck in his very frustrating 4th place. But just as the lights went green and the race roared to life, things went from bad to worse for Senna. His getaway was, well, let's just say sluggish. This gave 5th place Carl Wendlinger in the Sauber a golden opportunity, and he snatched it like a cheetah after a gazelle. He rocketed past Senna and even Schumacher, squeezing into a surprising 3rd place. History began to be written at the very first corner, called Redgate. Here, Senna unleashed his inner predator. He swooped in on Schumacher's inside line, a daring move that snatched back his 4th place position. Coming out of Redgate, Senna hugged the inside line, a strategy that gave him better traction. He rocketed forward, closing the gap on Wendlinger in 3rd. The Sauber driver tried to hold his ground, blocking off Senna's path. However, as they approached Craner curves, a notorious corner even for seasoned F1 veterans, Senna made a ballsy move. He feigned to the right, then with lightning reflexes darted left around Wendlinger, who braked slightly. For an outsider, this may seem like a simple maneuver, but Craner Curves is no ordinary corner. It's a heart-stopping left-hander, one of the most challenging in all of Britain. To pull off such an audacious overtake in those treacherous conditions, well, that was pure Senna magic. After passing Wendlinger, Senna quickly set his sights on Hill. Like the previous drivers whom he raced by, Hill also tried his best to block him from overtaking. But as they approached Schwant's curve, another sweeping left-hander, Hill made a crucial mistake. He stuck to the usual dry racing line on the left, leaving the right side wide open. This was Senna's moment. With uncanny precision, he steered his car onto the right side of the track, which was the slippery unconventional line. He did his best not to veer off course and only managed to succeed due to his skills. This gamble soon paid off. The next corner, a right-hander called McLaren's, favoured the inside line. Senna, with his nose in front, held his position and stormed into a sensational second place. Only one hurdle remained, Alain Prost. Remember, these two drivers had been arch rivals for years, so you can bet Senna wasn't exactly thrilled to see Prost leading the pack. Most drivers might not have bothered to keep on fighting, given that Prost was really good. However, Senna was not one of them. He was simply undeterred. For him, it was Prost or bust. Every braking zone that came next became an opportunity. He approached each one like a hawk, spending fewer precious seconds there than the norm. Soon, he was closing the gap on Prost faster than anyone thought possible. Now, all Senna needed was a slip-up from Prost, and wouldn't you know it, the racing gods delivered. As they both charged into the tricky chicane corner, Prost's car wiggled just a touch out of the path he was on. He would later claim that this was a gear issue, and not his fault, but no one truly knows. All that matters is it gave Senna the chance to surge alongside him. The next braking zone was a heart-stopping moment. Senna, with nerves of steel, braked much later than anyone dared. It was another risky gamble, but it paid off again. This aggressive maneuver secured him the crucial inside line, shutting the door on Prost's daring attempt to rocket ahead on the outside. At the next corner, Senna raced ahead into first place. He not only had a miraculous recovery from his earlier getaway mishap, he was now leading the pack. Shockingly, it took him only one lap to do so. Just one lap! If you were there, you definitely would have been left in awe at what happened. No wonder that lap is now called the Lap of the Gods. A fitting name for something so unbelievable. Once Senna took the lead, it was like watching a lion chase gazelles on the Serengeti. No one even came close. He crossed the final lap a whopping 1 minute and 23 seconds ahead of Damon Hill in second. Meanwhile, Prost, well, let's just say his rain dance wasn't as effective as Senna's. He spent most of his time swapping tyres, racking up a ridiculous 7 pit stops. He finally sputtered across the finish line in third place, a far cry from the top spot he probably imagined at the start. Believe it or not, this was not Senna's legendary record. During lap 57, he pitted for what he thought was a tyre change to tackle the ever-worsening rain. But here's the funny part, his team wasn't quite ready. "I think they told me to come, and I didn't come," Senna later explained in an interview. "Then I told them I was coming, and they weren't ready, so I had to go through." Now, the pit lane entry at Donington basically bypasses the final corner, acting as a shortcut. So, this unplanned pit stop turned into Senna accidentally setting the fastest lap of the race and a new track record at the same time. According to the records, the time he set was a blistering 1 minute 18.029 seconds. What seemingly started as a pit stop issue became a record-breaking moment, making Senna the only driver in F1 history to achieve this feat. You might be wondering, with faster cars and better technology these days, why hasn't someone just breezed past Senna's record? Why not just zip through the pits and smash that time? Well, here's the thing. Senna's record is a unique anomaly. Back in 1993, there were no pit lane speed limits during races. That's right, drivers could unleash their inner speed demons during pit stops. In short, speeding in the pit lane to get the tyres changed was part of the racing strategy. However, that same year, F1 began trialling speed limiter rules as a safety measure. Then, the following year, it was officially implemented after the devastating 1994 San Marino Grand Prix, where Senna himself lost his life after hitting a wall at over 210 km per hour. Today, all cars now have a button on the steering wheel that restricts their speed in the pits. This wasn't just imposed by governing bodies. It was a direct response to driver demands for a technical solution to curb pit lane speeding, rather than relying solely on individual discipline. So, unless F1 decides to take a trip back to the Wild West days of unlimited pit lane speeds, let's be honest, that's highly unlikely. Senna's record will remain safely out of reach.